You could accept the fact that this city is headed for a disaster of biblical proportion.
What do you mean, biblical?
What he means is Old Testament, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor. Real wrath of God type stuff.
Exactly.
Fire and brimstone coming down from the skies. Rivers and seas boiling.
40 years of darkness, earthquakes, volcanoes.
The dead rising from the grave.
Human sacrifice, dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
Well, they say it's not the X's and the O's, it's the Jimmys and the...
It was a legitimate call. Made sense. Was pass interference. I don't care what anybody says. That was pass interference. Offensive pass interference.
Yeah. Get ready for 2 hours of hard-hitting football talk from two men in the know. It's Football on the Know with Jim and Joe.
And you can win under pressure when it's there. You call runs when you're not supposed to. And Dak Prescott is throwing it in the dirt.
You know, I'm convinced that Jameis Winston is going to have an ESPN special 30 for 30.
All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Football on the Know. I am Jim McPhee, and alongside of me is Mr. Joe DeCapita.
What's going on, Know-It-Alls? Welcome back for another edition of Football on the Know Show. That's right, the one-stop shop that you can go for all your NFL talk. So,
Absolutely.
And we're like, what, 8 days away from the NFL draft?
Yep.
That's
8
exciting
days.
for everybody.
Yeah, it's coming up. Everybody's been talking about the virtual draft. GMs are on the radio now, too, talking about sharing a little bit here. Not sharing any tidbits.
No.
I know people are trying to get and see what they're going to go and lean towards, but they're not going to give any of that up. But just sharing what they're going to be doing, where they're going to be, precautions are going to be taken, too, at home and things that they're going to do here during this difficult time and different time here for the draft. And
virtual.
It's going to be total different for everything. And so it's going to be interesting going forward on how it's all going to happen. Are we going to see any trades during the draft?
Absolutely.
And how it's going to lay out. But we want to thank you guys for joining us here tonight. Make sure you can check us out here on YouTube, Football on the Know Show. Hit the subscribe button and hit the notifications bell. And also join our group on Football on the Know Show on Facebook and follow us on Twitter, FB_Know. So talk about trades and things like that, too. It just happened today. We were hearing that, there's rumors out there. It hasn't been confirmed by anybody yet, but OBJ's name is coming out in here in trade talks again. I mean, we talked about. It's funny as a memory popped up on my Facebook like 2 weeks ago about how I had said the Giants should probably just trade him, and then lo and behold, a season later they end up doing that, and now in Cleveland, now it's the chatter is coming around here too. Is he going to be going? We heard it a little bit last season. Is he going to be on the trading block? How's he going to work out here? That offense is star-studded, even what they have with the firepower.
Absolutely.
So I mean, they could even I don't know how to really phrase it, but they could even lose a player like him of his status and still be fine with what they have here. But the value here that I've been hearing about what's going on here with this trade to the Vikings. They lose Stephon Diggs here, but I hear it's a second and a fifth now. That seems real low for OBJ, especially because even they just got rid of Stephon Diggs of the Vikings here, and they got a one for him.
Yep.
And so I mean the ones that have been going. Brandon Cooks just went in a trade for number one. So why isn't it you're not hearing another number one first rounder here for OBJ? Or is that just even speculation what's going on here? Again, it's not even it's unclear whether it's really going down to because the people that are reporting it's fuzzy. Some people are saying it's absolute BS. Some are saying no, there's a chance. What do you think about this so far here?
Well,
Joe,
I mean, just to clarify, Brandon Cooks, he didn't go necessarily for a one. He went for a second rounder. And the other thing is about OBJ is, the interesting thing about this is, just like you were mentioning before, the Giants, were they thinking about trading and moving on from him? And then they ended up doing so a season after the discussions were made. Now you're starting to hear Cleveland is possibly looking for a trade partner to move OBJ. And it's really intriguing because OBJ is still in his prime. It's not like he's 29, 30 years old at the end of his contract and let's think about getting something for him before we have to, before he goes to free agency and try to move him that way. No, he's still in his prime, still under contract. And yet again, OBJ's name is being thrown around the league and possibly being traded away from Cleveland. Now, you mentioned the Vikings are they're the front runner right now with these trade negotiations and whatnot. And if it's only for a second and a fifth, I mean, what are you waiting for? I mean, pull the trigger. OBJ is definitely an upgrade over Diggs. Not to say that Diggs is not a good player. He is a really good receiver. But when you're talking about one of the premier wide receivers in the league, OBJ is that, especially when he's healthy. You know, he's had his fair share of injuries in the past, but managed to stay healthy for the Cleveland Browns for the most part, made the most that he could there with that team. And now, if Minnesota's able to give up only a second and a fifth and add a caliber of a receiver as him to that team, you pair him up with Adam Thielen and Dalvin Cook in the backfield, that's a scary offense to have to deal with week in and week out. So if that is the compensation, I'm all in for it. However, you do know very well that Cleveland is trying to get the most out of this deal, and if it is just the Vikings involved, they are trying to get the Vikings to bite on giving up one of their lower first-round picks, and be able to, if they can get a first-round pick out of it, I think Cleveland will do it in a heartbeat. Despite where the Vikings are sitting right now in the lower end of it. But if they can't, and there's no other suitors, the Vikings have no other shot. If they're looking to move on from him, second and a fifth it's a bargain for the Vikings. The Cleveland Browns get out from underneath his contract, and they move on from him.
We have Dave Rourke chiming in tonight. He says...
What's going on, Dave?
Yeah, he says, hi, Joe. I think OBJ OBJ is a cancer to the locker room. It's something that we don't see. That's why teams want to get rid of him after a season or two. And again, that can be taken, I think, in certain different ways, because everyone that we've talked to that has been in the locker room as players, they get along with him. They love this guy. So I don't think it's really a cancer in the locker room as far as, having that type of guy in there with the guys. They have camaraderie.
It's more like cancer with the organization or the coaching staff more than anything else.
Exactly, because maybe even they like him so much too, and then the antics that he has or whatever, and then he is not afraid to show his emotions on his sleeve. He does it many times. You have heard the last year him saying "come get me" and things like that, or the
whispering to other players.
Yes, and blah blah blah. So I mean, making a lot of things all about him. And the thing is that is interesting about this particular team, too, say the Vikings, if they do just step away from Stephon Diggs to where he kind of became a little bit of a complainer in his own right with that team. I think he saw himself as a true number one here and kind of not getting enough targets from Kirk Cousins when he was struggling a little bit last year. He was a little more vocal and causing issues like that and pouting a little bit on the sidelines. And I think what Dave is kind of saying here too is when you get somebody that we've seen do things like that on the sidelines, bury a kicking net, kick the kicking net, all kinds of other issues, have that same type of mentality. Why are you bringing that same type of guy back in? And you also kind of answered that same question here and saying, well, he's better than Stephon Diggs. I mean, and imagine that pairing right there. And if you can handle, certain teams and franchises have said that they could pretty much, if they can handle that type of personality, they're probably fine, and he's a great locker room presence here. But as far as is he going to be in trouble, who knows? If he's in Minnesota, how much trouble can he get into there?
Not much there, right? Saying? But the other thing too is you brought up him getting into trouble and everything. But we think of OBJ back in New York. That's kind of where everything kind of blew up, and it was at its absolute worst was with the Giants. Throwing the tantrums that he was throwing. Pretending to propose to a kicking net at one point and hitting the kicking net, throwing Gatorade jugs all over. He was a menace in New York, and that's why the organization and the coaching staff just said, we got to get rid of this guy. He is just ruining our organization, upsetting everything that we're stand for. And he even threw in his old buddy Eli Manning under the bus in an interview along with everybody else. So it's like, you can't really keep a guy on if he's going to badmouth your organization, badmouth your quarterback. So thus end up moving on from him. It seemed like when he got to Cleveland, he kind of reflected on himself a little bit. Maybe he changed a slight bit in Cleveland. He wasn't as much of a menace. He wasn't as much of a problem for Cleveland. Really didn't have any kind of major outbursts there. And you mentioned where he was like whispering to teams week in and week out, certain players saying, "Hey, come get me, come get me." He wasn't causing a ruckus. He was just basically saying, "Hey, if you guys are looking, I'm available. I would like to move on from Cleveland." And he was very displeased with how he was being used in that offense. You look at OBJ. Now, you say Diggs complained in Minnesota. OBJ, I think, has more of a right when he was in Cleveland to complain, because I didn't simply see them week in and week out trying to really create plays and get the ball in his hands and see what he could do with it. If this ends up happening and he goes to Minnesota, I think this is an amazing ad for the Vikings. Yeah. And OBJ, his career is going to flourish once again, because now he has a better quarterback throwing to him in Kirk Cousins. And they do work on distributing the ball over the football field. They are going to make an effort to get him the ball. And with the ball in his hands, he's a very dangerous player. We've seen it in the past. So Diggs moves on. If they are able to complete this and bring him in, that's a nice get. And it works out for everybody, because you think about the draft coming up and how deep the receivers are and how deep the talent pool is. For Cleveland to get, even if they were able to get their later of the first-round pick, or if they get a second and a fifth, either way, they can hit a gold mine with those selections. So I think it works out for both. Maybe Cleveland is looking out to get out from that contract, because in the future, they are going to have to re-sign Baker Mayfield when his rookie deal ends. They are going to have to probably re-sign some guys in the next season that they're looking ahead and forecasting that. So let's wait and see how it all shapes out.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave Rourke says, OBJ is a great player, but he is still young and is all about himself and isn't a team player. He was with a former teammate in Jarvis Landry, and he felt more comfortable with him, and that's the second one. And I'd have to say, he's got a right buzzer on both of those points here, because OBJ has flat out said, he's like, I don't care if we really win or lose, basically, as if I get what my catches or whatever, I get this, that's fine with me. I play well. And like he said here with Jarvis Landry, I don't think he's going to complain about not getting the ball as much because his buddy's getting the ball on the other side. And we kind of said that a little bit last season before it started, that would probably be the case.
It would be fine.
See it was stifled a little bit here.
Yeah.
Now with also, I want to bring up the point here with Minnesota. It's a better offensive line. So that's going to be a better situation for them too. So then Kirk Cousins has time to actually throw it, and Dalvin Cook too, running well, is going to be great for that team now too. And we'll see. We'll see if other teams have their names in the hat or under this whole thing, or if it just is a bunch of chatter going around and nothing's going to come up out of it. But it is something interesting to talk about here right before the upcoming draft, which is next Thursday. So it's going to be exciting moving forward. It's going to be on ABC. ESPN and NFL Network's going to have it too.
The NFL Network wants to work again. Okay.
Yeah, they want to do it.
They've
now,
been shut down for a while.
Oh, I know. Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Do you think even it's gonna happen with the Vikings, or could you even think of another team that could have the possibility to go for OBJ? Miami's got 3 first-round picks too. I mean, they're out there, and then we have a couple other teams that are interested too. I'm sure that it could work well.
If you look at the teams that have more than one selection, especially in the first round, even the second round, those are the teams that are more apt to maybe move on a veteran player, move on a player of his caliber, and not really be too hindered when the draft comes around. So you look at Miami; they got 3 first-rounders. Do they want to give up a first-rounder for OBJ? Maybe not, because they're still in that rebuild mode. You look at Brian Flores, the head coach of the Dolphins, and he comes from the Bill Belichick tree. He comes from that New England thinking of don't just splurge and spend all those valuable picks on any one player for no reason. Instead, hold on to them, draft your guys, and build your team through the draft. So I tend to think that won't ever happen, even though they have the most picks in the draft. They could pull it off and not be hindered at all. But I don't know. I mean, it's a good idea. I think if they're in a position to where they're ready to make a move, and this draft is going to dictate who their future quarterback is. Now, if you're a future quarterback coming into the league, who wouldn't want to throw to OBJ? You know what I mean? That would be an excellent boost in that receiving core for them. But on the other hand, you look at teams like, the Raiders, they have 2 first-round picks, but the Raiders really value their picks. They're not going to usually trade a first-round pick for just anybody, and it has to be a supreme talent. OBJ is that. However, they've done such a great job last season in drafting. There was only one draft pick last year in Isaiah Johnson who, because he was injured, never got to play, and all the other draft picks ended up starting. So if they're that successful this time again this year, I don't think they're really going to make a push for an OBJ either. So you look at these teams that want to go big, that want to possibly make some trades. Now, I think this is the type of thing where there's not a whole lot of suitors for this to happen. So that's why you end up hearing Minnesota Vikings as right now they're in the forefront. And I think they're dug their heels in a little bit and say, hey, we'll give you a second and fifth, but we don't really want to give you a first. So unless you can better that offer, that we'll be waiting for you to call us back.
Michael Guerrero chimes in. He says, good show, guys. Go Raiders. There you go. There's our resident Raiders fan besides Joe here. Here you go. Dave Rourke says, Raiders had the best draft class of 2019. And also he says, Miami is going to draft a quarterback first round. They may give up one pick in the first round for a veteran player, but it isn't going to be OBJ. And yeah, that's a valid point too. And the thing is too, it happens to come around a time to where, as everybody pretty much said here, the wide receivers that are in this draft class too. I mean, do you pull the trigger to do a trade here for OBJ, or is it more of a get your guys? We'll see what happens here if they still want to unload them afterwards, or do they end up just cutting them, or they're going to get whatever they can for them.
That's
you can
the
get them
thing,
later
too.
if you might need them.
That's the thing too. This draft, you don't know how the draft is going to fall to you. So why would you trade your draft picks right now and risk missing out on a potential stud that you could have had? So I mean, Miami's they have a lot of picks and they could do a lot of damage with those picks. They could trade up in the draft. They could trade back and gather even more. They could trade them for other players. Just sit where they are and take those selections that they see fit. I really expect them to sit where they are, unless they are absolutely all in on one particular guy that they kind of are just a little bit out of reach. But they're picking fifth overall. Now, if it's a quarterback that they like, if they want Joe Burrow, obviously they would have to give the farm to move up to number one and take that away from the Bengals. If they were willing to do that, I think that would be a bad move on their part. When they could sit at 5, and they could possibly end up getting Tua, they could get Justin Herbert possibly, bearing no trades ahead of them. You know what I mean? They could get a quarterback that they really like and just add them to their franchise and then build off of the rest of the draft. This draft is absolutely insane with talent. We bring up, like you were saying, the receiving core. That's not where it just stops. Everybody's blowing up the receiving depth of this draft, and rightfully so. But there are a lot of other positions that people are kind of they're going under the radar a little bit. You look at linebackers, really deep there, or offensive tackles. You could potentially get an offensive tackle in the first 3 rounds of this draft that could end up starting for you. That's how insane this is. So this draft is very exciting. I can't wait to get there. I can't wait to see what happens, what trades we're going to see. And we bring up trades for this draft, and everyone's worried about, is it going to be less trades because it's all virtual? It's not the same as it normally is. What I tend to think is I think you see all these teams. Now they're all preparing right now. They're all preparing for this virtual draft. They're testing communications. They're going through all different types of phases. What if this goes down? What do? We call you. We could. So after all this preparation is done, they've also already have called all these teams and a potential trade scenario. If we see this guy slip to us at 7, we're going to call them. We want to move up and get that guy. So there's already premeditated plans, parameters of a trade already built. So then when a certain scenario shows itself, they can just say, hey, we're going to do the deal. We're going to move up right now. What we discussed, boom, make it happen, done. I think it's going to be a little bit more it's going to have a really nice flow to this draft more than what people are expecting.
Yeah, and like I said, there's Roger Goodell for the first time can't get booed. When he's going to be at his home,
Yeah.
unless people are doing it.
He's
from
gonna
home,
be in his basement, by the way.
Yeah, there you go. So I mean, he'll be saying the picks. So it's going to be an interesting draft coming up here. But it made me think about an article I read a week or so ago from Jim Trotter on NFL.com. He said 3 NFL GMs that could potentially be on a hot seat. And I thought this would be a great segment here for us tonight to go over because I think some of these are interesting and which are probably true and maybe even overdue. And we decided to add one more onto our list to make it 4. So here we go. We're going to get rolling right into our GMs on the hot seat. And first of all, we have to just start off with Bill
This
O'Brien
guy.
here. This guy. All right. A lot of people have been calling for his job as a head coach for the last couple of seasons here.
I know I have.
And now, after even last season here, check this. After blowing that divisional game, 24-0 lead here, he gets promoted to the GM spot somehow. It's like all of a sudden he's like, you're not only the coach of these guys, you're also going to hire our next couple, and then you're going to fire a few, whatever you have to do. I don't get it here. What is the deal here with this guy? I mean, does he have something on McNair, the owner? I mean, does he have? I don't know. What is his deal here? But here we go. We've got Bill O'Brien here of the Houston Texans. He's been on the hot seat as a coach for a while. We've said it, but he's been able to skate by because yes, he had Tom Savage over there, Brian Hoyer, and
Not the
injuries
greatest
on,
quarterbacks.
Yeah, T.J. Yates, even a mixture of all kinds of guys here. Finally gets this guy in Deshaun Watson, and it seems like they're trending upwards again. Depending on how healthy their defense even can stay at times here, J.J. Watson and out, and they make it deep into the playoffs yet again. It looks like they just need to get over that hump, and they can't pull it off. And this offseason now, he trades away their star wide receiver here. And everybody goes ballistic. All right,
I know I was amazed.
Yeah, absolutely. For David Johnson, who's getting paid like $10 million right now, he's like the 4th highest paid running back,
Right.
in the NFL, and a second rounder. So I mean, you didn't even get a first rounder for him here.
No.
And just because he had too much of a strength in that locker room. What was he getting too much power, more than you? Like, what were you afraid of, or what's the deal here?
No,
That
I
you
mean,
just
he's
give
a leader.
away your player just like that.
He's a leader. He's a leader. He's a vet who's been in that franchise since he's been drafted. He's one of the best receivers in the league, and he still has 3 years left on his deal. He's still in his prime. He's still a great receiver. Why would you take away a great element, a great player like that? And for the speculations of him, did he have too much power in the locker room, and was he turning the locker room against good old Bill? No. He was a leader. He was guiding the team. He was helping the team. He was, making sure they were fired up every Sunday. He was the premier athlete that every team wished they had. Across the board, all 32 teams wish they had a guy like this. And there was also a rumor out there saying, he was asking for more money. If that's true,
he might.
if that is even true, you can't ask for more money when you signed a deal 2 years ago. You just can't. It's so early in the deal. You're in the middle of it, not even, because you didn't even get to this season yet. So, I mean, if that is true, I think that's a little ridiculous to even add. But also, what I could say is that DeAndre Hopkins might have been asking for more money because now Bill O'Brien is the GM. Bill O'Brien is also the head coach. And him and Bill O'Brien do not get along. It's not a secret. They never have gotten along. So I think it was his way of saying, hey, pay me more money or trade me type of deal. Even though he wanted to be traded because he didn't want to be underneath him anymore, be underneath Bill O'Brien anymore. So that could have been a ploy for Hopkins to say, hey, I know what I can do to force my way out of here to get dealt. And it ended up panning out that way. And for Bill O'Brien, for you as the first season as a GM, you've already blown it. You've already blown it. You traded away your best player, or at least best offensive weapon on the Houston Texans away. And now what do you have to show for it? Oh, that's right. You traded for Brandon Cooks. Sorry, not the same. Also, you picked up Randall Cobb.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Like, if that's your bandage that you put on Houston, I tell you right now, the fans are outside the stadium with pitchforks and torches, and they want to burn your house down.
Yeah, I mean, the countless decisions that he's made. They don't have a first-round pick until 2022 right now.
Right.
So look
Thank
at it
you,
that
Bill.
way. They're looking at it that way. So if they do need any kind of particular part, to fill in here, in the it's first-round talent, then he's
Yep.
got to even work some more deals to try and get a first here back. And a lot of people even maybe even some of the Texans fans are still even a little hurt about the whole way it happened with Jadeveon Clowney, only getting a third, and he got a couple veteran players here for him. But then even the timing on when he traded him. If you knew that he was maybe going to sit out or hold out on the franchise tag before, why didn't you try and even unload him before that? Maybe try to get a little more value instead of right before the season's going to start. Everybody knows he doesn't want to be there, and you're going to get rid of him. So
Right.
you weren't going to get anything for him then.
Yeah.
And look at what happened with Seattle. They sat in the perfect spot here. It worked out for him. And and yes, maybe he was going to start demanding the money he was demanding like this offseason, but look at where he is now. Now he's saying, "Oh, I'm not going to be taking 17. Now I'll be taking this." Pretty soon he's going to take. I'll take whatever you guys give me.
Yeah.
Here, Dave Rourke says Bill O'Brien will be gone after this season. I think Texans fans would hope that, and maybe we will see that, but we don't know. With some of these teams, we saw it with the Bengals, hanging on to Marvin Lewis too long. I don't know what it was there. I don't know if McNair is happy with this. We'll make the playoffs, a couple years here, and just that mediocrity of being relevant, and that's it, and that's good for him.
Right.
But I mean, this team, especially with a young quarterback under his rookie contract still here. This is the time to do it, man. Because
tell ya.
again, the payments are going to be coming up pretty soon.
Absolutely. And not only that, you got to wonder how much longer J.J. Watt is going to play.
Yeah.
Like, you've kind of skated by for a while with having these premier pass rushers. Clowney's gone. He's not going to come back anymore. He wants to be paid big time. He's still out there in free agency.
Yeah. Yep.
And the Texans aren't going to put that up to get him back. So, also, since he left, you got to worry about Whitney Merciless maybe wanting out because of these things that are starting to change. A lot of players right now in that locker room are kind of confused. Like, they just moved on from one of the best receivers in the league. Jadeveon Clowney's no longer here. You tend to look around the locker room and you're saying, wow, he was a really good player for us in Clowney. Wow, Hopkins is one of the best receivers in this league. Now he's gone. Is it going to be me next week? Is it going to be me next month? Like, am I going to get dealt? Do I have to worry about my future as a Houston Texan? Now, and Deshaun Watson, poor Deshaun Watson. I mean, he was a very close friend of Hopkins and was looking forward to this season and making a bigger splash. I just don't understand the moves. I don't understand the logic of it. It just doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And because of these irrational moves, and I don't even know if they're just personal now at this point. Are they personal? I mean, because it seems to look like it. If you're not down with Bill and you have a problem with him, you're going to get shipped out. So you're looking at this team that should be building on the future, should be building for this upcoming season and trying to make another playoff run, is now they lost a couple of key pieces now. One versus trade, one goes to free agency. J.J. Watt, he doesn't have Father Time is calling. J.J. Watt's got the bad back, and he's been in and out of the lineup last season. Will he be able to stay in there all this season? There's a lot of questions now that are starting to circle around the Houston Texans, and you got to wonder, like, the future to me does not look bright at all.
Absolutely. Dave Rourke says Houston doesn't have the talented players to trade for a first-rounder unless they trade J.J. Watt. And even at this point, I don't think you're going to get a first-rounder for J.J. Watt. I mean, the way he's been injured.
I'll tell you who you would get, Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
That's about it. I mean, you know what? Hey, you're dealing everybody else, Bill. What do you want to do? Tear everything down?
Yeah.
You might as well just trade away your future with Watson.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I think he's definitely on the hot seat. He's been on the hot seat for a while. We will see moving forward here this season.
I'm sorry, but like for the last 2 to 3 years, I've been hoping this guy gets fired. This has to be the year where he gets fired. At the end of the season, he's got to be fired. He's got to go. They need a new regime in there.
All right, that's right. Moving forward now, I've heard murmurs about this one here, and it's Bob Quinn with
Not Bob.
the Detroit Lions here. And there's Matt Patricia next to him, too, because a lot of fans, too, and even players have been disruptive here and not on board with Matt Patricia's style of coaching here, saying he's too hard on them, and even too much of saying, even demeaning them, saying they're not, great in this and this and blah, 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 and things like that. He's mean, I guess. I don't know. But Bob Quinn, he added, and the thing is with him, too, he's maybe almost like the Gettleman thing. He's added a lot of former Patriots to this team. If you look at all of them so far he's been here.
I mean, that's definitely influenced by Patricia.
Right. They're trying to keep doing it the Patriot way. I'm sure they're trying to keep it in the same type of system and what they want to do. It doesn't always work out. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it don't. But I've got the longer list here. And the thing that people are looking at here, which you and I talked about this earlier in our prep, they fired Jim Caldwell, and some people want to bring up a race card about it. I'm not going to get into it that way.
No,
but he had 3 winning seasons here, and he took him to 2 playoff appearances in 4 years. Quiet Jim Caldwell. He's just been a silent guy. You don't do it. They win, and then they bring Matt Patricia in, and they went like 6-10, and I think the other one was like 3-12, I think. Or 3-13 or something like that. But it's, last year they lost Matthew Stafford. So what are you going to do? You can't really fill his shoes. What are you gonna do? And then even at wide receivers, they're here or there. They get rid of Golden Tate, so he's not there anymore.
Yep.
I mean, so there's other things that matter in here with this team. But the fact that the owner has come out and said, I'm sticking with these guys. These guys' job are still safe. That's kind of scary that you're bringing that up. And then the fact that I just expect more out of this team and that we need to, be better. So that's what's the words that your owner is bringing up while you're still being, paid here. So, the time is short here for Bob Quinn in Detroit. What do you think so far about this, Joe, and what's going on here with Bob Quinn?
I mean, well, for Bob Quinn, I think he's done a decent job. I mean, listen, Detroit Lions for a long time have needed a rebuild. They just need it. They've had experience. They've had experimentations with this offensive line by basically just adding all bunch of different free agents to this O-line to try to upgrade it, and it didn't really work out. They were injured half the time, and even when they were healthy, they weren't that great. So Golden Tate, Marvin Jones, great tandem that they had there for a while, and Matt Stafford was very happy with those two. They still have not had a premier tight end to help with that receiving core. They did draft last season T.J. Hawkinson, who looks the part, who could be a dynamite tight end for them, who can block and catch. However, I mean, I haven't seen in Detroit's offense them using the tight end position that much.
Yeah, that's
no matter
the thing
who they had. Eric Ebron, when he left Detroit, I thought by drafting TJ, that I was like, okay, they're going all in. That was a first round pick. You don't invest that kind of a draft pick in a guy that you just hardly use. I definitely thought they were going to make a little change there, and they just didn't. It just doesn't seem like. They've had weapons before, and it just doesn't seem like they really kind of utilize everybody. They did draft Kerryon Johnson. Now that's another guy that was injured last year too, with their starting running back.
That's the thing. The running game, it needs to.
So I mean, and the one thing that I've seen Detroit do, much like what New England used to do, is they used to use the short passing game to the running back to create those running plays. So with Theo Riddick. And Kerryon Johnson there. So and it paid off. It worked. But their offensive line still isn't up to par. Their defense has been good at times, but they're still lacking in overall talent on that side of the football. And now that they've dealt Golden Tate, they need to replace Tate. They're going to have to replace Marvin Jones soon. Matt Stafford, huge question mark with him injury-wise. Is he going to be healthy enough to play this season? Is he going to be able to play this season? Is he going to be able to last? There's a lot of question marks offensively, and then defensively, you trade Darius Slay away. You move on from him. Now, I get it. Darius Slay, even though he's a premier corner, he is a shutdown corner when healthy. That's the biggest problem is Detroit, I just feel like, was tired of waiting all the time for him. Is he going to stay healthy this year? Is he going to stay healthy the next year? This is the year he's going to be healthy, right? And it seemed like he would get injured over and over and over and not be there for the team. So They decided to move on from his contract, move on from his injuries, ship him over to Philadelphia, and now they have a big hole at corner.
Well, they got Desmond Trufant in that, afterwards from Atlanta.
Free agency.
Yes. So I mean,
but another
he's,
guy that gets injured.
Yeah, exactly. He can help you when he's in there, and he's even on the downtick of his, career here. Not like a young Darius Slay there too for them.
Right.
And the thing is too, they had held on to Ziggy Ansah too long, I think, on that defensive line for them, and that's when they were sticking around waiting for that. They could have been making moves and making it happen for them, and now they're stuck in this position, like you said, to where now they went and got Jamie Collins, former Patriot. They got Trey Flowers there. Maybe they got guys that can be in the Matt Patricia system here on defense.
Yeah,
know
and
what
they're
they're
also
doing
gonna-
and be effective here.
They're also, even though they're not in their prime, they're guys that can help teach the younger guys the system to make it work a little bit better.
And the one thing I've wondered too about this too is this wide receiving core. You've got Kenny Galladay, who's had flashes of greatness here
He's a
too
good
for this
player.
team, and he's very good. And
Good player.
and Marvin Jones, he's on a downhill turn here, and you get Danny Amendola to fill up the slot position.
Also injury prone.
Yes, and the
see the theme?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. You've got this as your wide receiving core, and then the only addition you do so far is Geronimo Allison again, which I'm not really impressed with either. And so
Right.
I'm sure you're getting him too because he's familiar. You Green Bay. You see
Yeah.
teams like this within the same divisions get players from other teams that are your opposition or your rivals. Try and get whatever you can out of them. You've seen a lot of tape on them, so maybe they play better here. But I think the key to this team here is Matthew Stafford's ability to
100%.
stay healthy too.
100%.
Because he is injured a lot though too, and that's his
Right.
problem. Because when he's out there, he is one of the top 10 players, top 10 quarterbacks. I mean, even
Right.
top 5 at this point, with the way the
Right.
NFL is with quarterbacks and how they're some are retiring and moving on and rotating.
Yep.
Matthew Stafford is one of the most underrated quarterbacks out there. Because, again, a lot of people see him on the Detroit Lions, a losing team, because people want to say if you're not winning, if you don't have enough talent yourself to drive your team to wins, then you're not that great.
Right.
And this is where Matthew Stafford gets overlooked.
And that's the other thing, too, is like the Detroit Lions, like we saw them even in this offseason, they went heavy offensive line. They had a lot of guys. Frank Ragnow, they drafted 2 years ago. Stellar center. He's definitely a guy that's going to stick with them for the long term. They ended up go ahead and they picked up a guy from Arizona and Ode Abushi. I don't know what his name is. Abushi. Ode Abushi. An average lineman. You know what I mean? It's not really an upgrade. It's kind of like we're going to see if we're going to throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. You know, type of thing.
Cody Cook jumps in with us tonight.
What's going on, Cody?
What's up, know-it-alls? There you go. There's
I like
Cody's
it.
in the house tonight.
That's right.
Cody, what do you think about the Bob Quinn's job possibly here for the Detroit Lions?
Yeah, and they also bring in the Eagles offensive lineman and Valatai, and I'm not even going to try to pronounce his last name. Too long for me. But they have him at right tackle, which I think is a good signing. But again, this offensive line has never been rock solid across the board. Frank Ragnow, great player. But everybody else needs to step their game up for this upcoming season. And they did add another tight end in Jesse James.
Yes, Jesse James.
You know,
yep.
so now they have TJ
Formerly
and
Pittsburgh.
Jesse. Are they going to use them for crying out loud? You know, I mean, it's amazing to me how you go now. You have Kenny Galladay and Marvin Jones. Okay, that's fine. That'll work. But after that, they end up picking up Geronimo Allison from the Green Bay Packers. Maybe he can help with that rotation. But Danny Amendola, injury prone, like we were just saying before. I don't think their receiving core is strong enough.
Right. That's what I was getting at. Yep.
And you're absolutely right too about Stafford. Huge question marks right now. Is Detroit thinking about possibly drafting a quarterback in this draft? Maybe not at third overall. Maybe not. Maybe they're looking the second round. I don't know, but the longer you wait for quarterbacks and not get the guy that you could use, it will bite you in the end.
Right, that's right. We're talking about GMs on the hot seat. We already talked about Bill O'Brien here. We're on Bob Quinn. And that even brings up the point where you're talking about Matthew Stafford and his health. This is where I had even brought up the fact that maybe we do see Jameis Winston behind Matthew Stafford here on a incentive-laden deal to back him up. Because what if he goes down again? Matthew Stafford here. Guy,
They don't have
strong
anybody.
arm, might work out in his system here under Matt Patricia, who's very strict. You know, you got to show up on time, 10 minutes
Right.
early to when we start.
Yeah.
Get him in there. That'd be a great backup here for Matthew Stafford and a great fit, I think, there in Detroit. And maybe a good move by Bob Quinn to get back on good graces with people.
I really think Jameis Winston, I'm surprised that he's still out there for one. Yeah, listen, I get it. He threw 30 picks last season. I understand that. He made some mistakes, but also you can't blame every single interception he threw on him. Sometimes the ball was tipped. Sometimes the receiver should have made the play and didn't, or should have made the catch and didn't, and it tipped off their hands and got picked off that way. There was other variables that made that stat line for Jameis so terrible. And you look at the season prior, didn't have that bad of a season. Threw a lot of touchdowns. His interceptions were lower, a lot lower actually, and looked like, hey, maybe we can work with this guy. And now he just had that bad season last year, and everybody wants to throw him in the trash can. Well, he's 26 years old, people. 26. He's still in his prime. And he has a strong arm, which would fit that Detroit type of offense where they like to push the ball down the field. He is accurate. Winston can throw the ball. He is accurate. It's just the decision-making and the footwork and the turnovers that's got to be diminished and go away. And maybe he needs a change of scenery. Maybe he needs a different coaching staff teaching him how to be a quarterback. And with Matt Stafford there, that could be huge for Jameis to grow and develop under a veteran like him. So I think that would be an excellent addition if the Lions did go that way. Bring him in. Now you have a legitimate backup behind Stafford if he can go. We don't even know that yet. There hasn't been any reports saying that he's 100% full go for this season. He's healthy. He's ready to rock. Nothing. So right now, we're unsure if the Detroit Lions even have a quarterback for this season. That's got to be concerning. So if you bring in Winston, even just to bring him in now, have him learn the playbook, Stafford can help him with it, obviously virtually, because that's the day and age we're living in right now. And maybe it'll pay off huge for them in the near future.
I want to give a shout out to Susie Ashley that's watching with us tonight, and April, May, June that's out there too, also watching with us tonight.
Excellent.
Cody,
Thank you, guys.
he answers us. We hear about the Lions. He said the Lions have been a middle of the road team for years, always around 6-10, 9-7,
Right.
more of a stepping stone. I just lost Restream, but more of a stepping stone. Team.
Comment
Now I
down.
got to go to my phone. See, that's what happens, this stuff, technology.
Yeah,
All right,
there you
Stephen
go.
Tomica, unless somehow they get lucky and draft the next great superstar, game changer. I don't see that changing anytime soon. I love Stafford, but he's been wasted for years in Detroit. Jameis, he also says here, Jameis is out there, in my opinion, because of his ego and lack of accountability at the end of the season rather than being modest. And he's saying he could improve, or he's saying he can improve. All he said is he's balled out during the season. I think some teams might be worried that he just isn't willing to change or doesn't think he needs to change.
But that's the thing, too, is now he's humbled.
Yeah.
Now he's humbled. You don't have a team now, bro. You don't have a starting job. You don't have a job. Now, wait, the phone isn't ringing off the hook anymore for Jameis? No, you've kind of ruined what you had going in Tampa. So now you look at teams now, they're not worried. They're not rushing to his doorstep. They're not. I get that. But now Jameis Winston eventually is going to come to the realization like, hey, I just have to do whatever they want me to do to keep playing this game that I love. I just have to go in there. I'll have to be a backup. I'm still going to compete and work my tail off to win the starting job. Even if it's not available, still going to compete. Still going to try to make a point that I deserve to be the starter. Look at what Teddy Bridgewater was. He's going to have to go the same route that Teddy Bridgewater went. For a while, he got drafted. He came in, he played, didn't do so great, ended up going into free agency, and ended up on a couple different teams. With the Saints, I think was a blessing for him because now he got to learn a little bit under Drew Brees while he was there. Played and was successful in New Orleans. Now he's going to be the starting quarterback of the Panthers. So it all comes full circle for now Teddy Bridgewater. Same route is going to have to be played by Jameis Winston. He's only 26. He's going to have to be a backup right now. Prove yourself in preseason. Prove yourself in any opportunity that you get. And then maybe 2-3 years down the road, maybe your turn will come.
All right, that's right. We're talking about GMs possibly on the hot seat coming up this season. We already talked about Bill O'Brien and Bob Quinn. Now, next, we're going to move on to the GM for the Chicago Bears. It's Ryan Pace here. A lot of people also bringing up his name in some of the questions here and possibly being on his way out because of some of the moves he did here. If you want to look at it, he has 4 first-round selections in 5 drafts, and all of them were in the top 10. Let's go through the list of names here. He's got Kevin White. He drafted 7th overall in 2015, wide receiver. Yes. Leonard Floyd, number 9 in the 2016 season. Both those teams are gone. They're not even on this. Most of these guys are gone. They're not even on the team anymore. Then their next one, 2nd overall in the 2017 draft, Mitch Trubisky. And this is where he gets all of the heat for, because in that same draft you had Deshaun Watson and you also had Patrick Mahomes out there. Now you see where Patrick Mahomes is trending, just recently a Super Bowl win. The one hit he did have was Roquan Smith here, 8th overall in 2018, but so far, again, not too stellar here. 2 of the guys are already gone. You have Mitch, who's a big question mark. Doesn't seem he can really get to that next step. Still slow on decision-making and doesn't look comfortable in the pocket at times. And then the trade for Khalil Mack, boom, that was a big move for them. They go 10-6 that season. They grabbed him back in 2018. They give up their first-round pick for him. But even with him on that team, next year, or this past year, they went 8-8, so they started losing more. So was it because of the injury to Trubisky? Was it just he wasn't even playing better? We're not sure, but something needs to be done here for this team. And a lot of questions here by all the Bears fans. And so it's getting kind of rocky here in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, and Ryan Pace, I think he's done a good job. I mean, you can say, listen, GMs put together teams. It's up to the coaching staff and for everybody else to kind of make it work, and the players themselves. Obviously, the players are they're playing on the football field. They need to make the plays. But I think Ryan Pace has done a phenomenal job of adding talent, acquiring talent, and giving every little bit that the coaching staff could use there. We look at 3 seasons ago. They get Trubisky, they get their future quarterback. Now, listen, they needed a quarterback bad. Jay Cutler a while back was not panning out to be their guy for the future, and they needed to look elsewhere. So they go ahead and they draft Mitch Trubisky. Now, a big problem with Trubisky was no matter where he went, there was always question marks coming out of college from North Carolina that is it too early? He only had 1 season. 1 season in college he played, his senior year. That's it. There's not a whole lot of experience there. He had 1 season, played miraculously there. He ends up getting drafted, and they were hoping. Let's be honest. They were hoping that he would pan out and develop into the future, and so far has not. It's that simple. I think he still needs a lot more development, and he was rushed. He was literally rushed onto the football field because they didn't have anybody else. So you rushed him in there too early. Then he didn't have any weapons. He had Jordan Howard back there. That's nice. Offensive line was, average to above average at best. But no receiving weapons. Then the following year, they finally get receiving weapons, and the offense looked a lot better. Trey Burton and Allen Robinson and company, all these guys. Also Anthony Miller, who they recently drafted, who was a nice addition for them. But overall, they're starting to gain something on that offense, starting to show, and to pair that up with that defense, man, that stellar defense that they have. It was incredible. So I think as far as GM, I think Ryan Pace is safe. I think he's definitely done enough. It's not like some of the other GMs that we mentioned where in Detroit, where it seems like they acquire talent, but then it doesn't keep going. You know what I mean? It just looks too like it's like Swiss cheese. They fill a hole and then they leave the other one open too long until they got to replace that one. Then the other one goes away. So there's a lot of problems in Detroit for that matter. Ryan Pace, listen, they have a good team on paper. They have an excellent talent pool. So I think he's done his job. I think he's done it well. I don't foresee him losing his job, much like some of the other guys, like Bill O'Brien. Good God. That guy should have lost his head coaching job a while ago.
Yeah.
Now he gets awarded. Listen, you get awarded for losing in the playoffs. We're going to make you the GM. Good job, Bill.
Yeah, you
so
should make
gotta
bigger
question
decisions.
You got to question the ownership, don't you?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've been saying, man. There's been a lot of questions about this ownership too, because if you think of this, McNair was also the guy who said we're letting the prisoners run the prison or whatever it was, something like the inmates run the prison when they were going through things a few years ago and it got iffy. So this is the guy you're dealing with too. So I'm not going to start anything again, but there's another
looks like
issue.
You're trying to start something.
I don't know what it is here. I can't. But we got Zach Walker is watching us with us too. I just saw him. He's
Zach,
in there.
what's going on, buddy?
And Andrew Reinitz is in the house too.
I like it.
All right, Dave Rourke says Trubisky was a bust from the beginning. He didn't play enough in college. That pick was a reach for Chicago.
Oh, it definitely
Trubisky
was.
could be an NFL cowboy. Yeah, it definitely was. They liked him. They were hoping they found that magic in a bottle, and it wasn't. Yeah. And as far as if he's safe or not,
and just like Dave was saying, Trubisky, they're hoping that he still could be that quarterback. However, now they've kind of made that decision already. They ended up pulling off a trade for Nick Foles, and they get Nick Foles there. Now, I'm sorry, but with the way the contract is for Nick Foles, if he doesn't get the start, he has a stipulation in his contract that after the season he can void the contract. He can, not the team. He can void it. So with the way that's structured, he's a definite starter. He is going to be the Bears starter going forward, and Trubisky is going to have to learn underneath Foles. That's what's going to happen, and hopefully it'll help Trubisky grow and develop as a quarterback, and maybe eventually he could be the starter for Chicago. But for this upcoming season, I don't foresee that. It's going to be Nick Foles, and we've seen flashes of Nick Foles being absolutely excellent, brilliant. Didn't work out so much in Jacksonville, but maybe
again,
in
injury.
Chicago it will with that different offense.
Yeah, absolutely. And when you talk about Ryan Pace here being his job in jeopardy, I think it's more along the lines of Matt Nagy's problem. Like you said, even too. Yes, he hasn't really hit great, I guess, for his draft, his number one picks. But look at the depth he's got. He also brought in, he drafted Tariq Cohen. That guy is lights
Electric.
out. He is. I just wish Nagy would use him more. That's what I mean. Things like that.
You started to see that last year.
Jordan Howard. They ended up trading him away, trying to get some other things here and other pieces here. He also picked up a nice veteran talent along the lines here of Danny Trevathan too, to help out that defense too. On top of everybody else that they have. Yep. And Robert Quinn now they just bring in this season. I'm not sure so much how that's going to work out the way that worked
I think
out
that's
here,
great for
but,
them.
I mean, with I like him being there. The money, I think, was a little over.
Little rich.
But that's what I'm just saying.
Little rich. But,
besides that.
But I'll tell you right now.
But to get him in there,
for a player
great
his
move
age
there. Yep.
and his production he had with the Cowboys last year, off the charts. So you bring him in and replace Leonard Floyd.
Yeah.
It's going to be
it's
absolutely
going to be
insane.
nice.
You got Quinn on one side and Mack on the other rushing the quarterback. Are you kidding me? With this stellar linebacking core, Roquan Smith in the middle and Danny Trevathan, who ends up re-signing.
Yeah.
It looks scary.
That's
now,
what I mean. I like those moves.
After that, they need a corner.
Yeah.
They moved on from Prince. Prince is no longer a Bear. He's still out there in free agency. So you look at that hole that they have, and they could really fill that in, and this defense could be right back to where it was once before.
Absolutely. And one more highlight, too, by him. He did, in the later rounds, draft Eddie Jackson, and he has been nothing but a Pro Bowler here for this team. So he has hit many times. I think it depends on now Matt Nagy moving forward and doing what he needs to do. All right, and finally for GMs on the hot seat that we think is on the hot seat for this coming season, it's got to be Dave Gettleman. This guy. Yeah, look at him. Like, oh, what, me?
Yeah,
you.
you.
Yeah, you. Yeah, Dave Gettleman, the guy that hired Pat Shurmur, which I didn't get in the first place either. Also, the guy that one of his first moves he made was getting 31-year-old Jonathan Stewart from Carolina. Kareem Martin, Antoine Bethea, moves like that. All guys I don't like and can't
All
stand. I
old
think they're not going to
veterans that are
produce.
on the decline.
Right. They're hoping that they were going to be able to do something for him. And the Nate Solder signing that I didn't like. We've gone over this a bunch of times.
Yeah,
we know why
yeah,
he did it.
right.
But again, overpaying for a left tackle when you needed it. who a guy was already trending backwards. You didn't need to do it so much. I've been asking for this guy to draft offensive linemen for the past 2 seasons here. He hasn't done it. He loves drafting D tackles. Yes, Dexter Lawrence, I think, looked really good last year.
Yeah, he was a good player. Really
definitely.
good player.
I like that too. But I'm looking for him to adjust and make the picks that need to be filled here. He said he was going to come here into New York and start kicking some ass. I'm looking to see it.
I don't see it.
I don't see it yet.
But
yeah.
I will say this, not to completely beat the man while he's down. He has made a couple of moves that ended up working out. You look at a couple of the draft picks that he's had. Dexter Lawrence you brought up. One of those picks that panned out, it was a great pick, was a need. It worked out brilliantly. However, you traded back up into the lower part of the first round to draft a corner. We also knew that was a need. But DeAndre Baker, I'm sorry. I wasn't high on him coming out of the draft, and I'm still not. I think he's not a very good corner. He just isn't. So it seems like they got themselves another Eli Apple-esque type of corner now, with trading up into that first round, using that pick on him. I just thought it was too much of a reach for him, and so even though he makes good decisions sometimes he makes awful bad ones. A lot of people picked on him for Daniel Jones being picked too early.
Right.
And we've kind of had this discussion back and forth about was it too early? Could they have gotten him back where they were? And there was a lot of speculation going on. Redskins also needed a quarterback, and it seemed like there was rumors swirling around that they were going to perhaps take Jones if he was available. And I'm trying to remember right now, there was another team also that needed a quarterback, and I just can't seem to remember. But there was some uncertainty in that draft. Could the Giants just stay pat and take their guy? And they didn't. Listen, everybody will tell you, draft experts, GMs, coaches, if you have a guy that you absolutely want in the draft, you go and get him. You don't wait and see if he falls to you. If you are dead set on him and he's your guy and you're pounding the table for him, you get him. You select him. And that's what I think the Giants did. Hey, listen, no organization cares what any of us think. They don't. They don't care what the media thinks. They don't care what the fans think. They're going to do whatever they feel is necessary to improve the team. And the Giants just did that getting Jones. So, and listen, you were happy when he traded OBJ.
Oh, I know, yeah. We've shared that video a
decision.
bunch of times.
So,
Well, I was loving it. I loved it when they traded OBJ. I like I said, I predicted that, or asked him to do it a year in advance.
You did.
And then he finally did it, and I was just like, oh, you did it, yes. And everybody else is like, all the other traditional Giants fans are like, what? No, please don't. And I said it made sense. It was the right thing to do. You had to unload these guys to try and
Especially
get the
at the
value
time.
picks to get what you needed. And
guy was causing a problem.
And I think the picks that they got for Odell Beckham Jr., they turned out to be great players. They were able to get Dexter Lawrence, and then still use their other pick to get Daniel Jones there. So I mean, they worked out, I think, for him there too.
And also they picked up Jabril Peppers as safety.
Peppers too, along with it, which I like Jabril Peppers. He's still young. He's still a good player. I thought it was great there for safety because I was, again, in the minority here, on board with moving on from Landon Collins. I think he was not really great in coverage. I think he's more of a run stopper kind
much
of
of a
safety
in-the-box
here.
safety.
Yeah, in the box safety. Absolutely. You took words right out of my mouth. That's what he is. And that's
what I
fine.
do.
And look how he's working in Washington. It's not looking so hot there, too.
Yep.
So, I mean, I was happy to move on from him. You don't have to pay him. You get Jabril Peppers in there. You just need that other guy on the other side. And why wasn't Michael Thomas in more last season? Instead, you get Antoine Bethea, and then you guys start him over Thomas. Thomas, who was a Pro Bowler a year before. I didn't get that. Again, maybe that's on the coaching there, So that's we don't have to deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
We got Joe Judge on board now. But like I said, some of the picks suspect, but I already wanted Daniel Jones. Again, I thought maybe we could have got him later on. And then I was looking at Josh Allen, maybe a fourth overall pick there or whatever. I think it was seventh. I think it's seventh, right? Seventh there. I think he was still there. I was thinking, these defensive guys, edge rushers, are falling to us.
Ed Oliver
this is
was
great.
there.
Ed Oliver, I mean, it's there. And when he goes Daniel Jones, it's like, I still think we could have waited. But overall, some things suspect. He goes and gets Bradbury, which is a great player. But again, once I hear Carolina again, I'm like, what's he doing again? Is he walking away?
I'll
Can
tell
he
you
bring
right
him
now,
back in? But Bradbury, great player. Great for that
Phenomenal
secondary
shutdown
that we
corner.
need. So
Phenomenal
we'll see
shutdown corner.
moving forward with that. But a lot of questions around Dave Gettleman. And I know being in the Big Apple, the spotlight's on him.
Yeah, and he likes to make big splashes. And we all know that Gettleman loves defensive linemen. He loves big guys that are strong, that can move the pressure, move that pocket. But here's the other thing, too, is like you kind of you touched on a little bit, and I know it was a little sort of a subject when it happened, is Nate Solder being signed.
Yes.
Signed way too much money. Now, they were all in on Andrew Norwell before he decided to go to the Jacksonville Jaguars. But this is where we see Gettleman kind of make a good decision and then kind of just all of a sudden make a terrible one. And he got desperate and decided to reach for Nate Solder and pay him oodles of money that they can't get out from underneath right now. So that's coming back to bite them right now. Now they have yet another opportunity to get a stellar offensive tackle in the upper part of the first round. They are picking 4th in this draft. It should not even be this difficult. This is a shoo-in. You have to take tackle to not only protect Daniel Jones going forward, but also create running lanes for Saquon Barkley. This offense is not far from being able to put a lot of points up on the board week in and week out. And if they shore up that offensive line, this Giants offense is going to be tough to stop for sure. But it's a big if. Will Gettleman refuse and kind of hold back the anticipation of maybe taking a big splash pick defensively? Will he? We have to wait and see, but he definitely loves taking defensive players in the first round. He's got to hold back that urge and pick offensive tackle. I'm sorry. This is the draft to do it. These guys are amazing. There's 5 tackles in this draft that are all going to get picked in the top 10, I think. There's going to be 5. Definitely 4, maybe 5 in the top 10 that'll be picked. And they're all great players. So this is a draft. You have to protect your quarterback, for God's sakes. That's what kind of led last season. Daniel Jones got thrust into that spotlight there. And, yeah, he made poor decisions sometimes. And, yeah, he made mistakes. But some of them were because he didn't have time.
Yes, absolutely. Just throwing it out
Gotta
there.
protect him. So don't screw this up, Gettleman. Do not screw it up. Take the best offensive tackle on your board.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he should attack also the not only offensive line here though too, but wide receivers. I think a change needs to happen.
This is the draft to do it.
Yeah,
they can.
That's what I mean.
The
Because Golden
Giants-
Tate, a lot of times there, when he's your number one here, but he doesn't have the height advantage on some of these guys. You saw a lot of jump balls he wasn't able to bring in last year, and you have Sterling Shepard who's had 5 concussions, and he's in there, not even had a full season, I don't think yet, and.